Hiya, welcome to Craftwork. I'm Ruthie and I hope you've had a great week. Thanks for joining me. Today's video is a little bit different. I feel quite nervous because it's quite a daunting topic to talk about, but it's a topic that I'm quite passionate about and definitely want to learn more, so I thought I would talk you through why and what I'm doing at the moment, and then also introduce this topic because I definitely want to talk about it a little bit more on my channel and to have this conversation. But also I really want to hear your thoughts on it, so please get in the comments down below and let me know what you think, because I want this to be like a conversation. So tomorrow, the 23rd of April, is the start of Fashion Revolution Week, which is a campaign that was started following the Rana Plaza factory collapse in 2013 on the 24th of April. The building collapsed and killed over 1,000 people. It really brought to light the conditions that people were working in and the lack of basic human rights, including safety. So Fashion Revolution Week encourages people to share the hashtag Who Made My Clothes and to share their labels, and to encourage brands, manufacturers, suppliers to respond with I made your clothes, and to create a little bit more transparency throughout the supply chain. Obviously, the more transparency there is, the more likely conditions will improve, as no one wants to be transparent about poor practices. I want to talk about it because there have been a lot of really interesting conversations brought forward in the sewing community, particularly the Love to Sew podcast. They did an episode recently on sustainability, which is really great. I highly recommend you check it out if you're not already subscribed. It is a brilliant podcast in general, and that is a particularly good episode. They, like me, were quite nervous, I think, about starting to tackle this topic, but like me, really wanted to take the leap in doing so. Now, firstly, a little disclaimer: I do not mean this video to be judgmental on anyone else in any way, shape or form. Like, everyone does what they can, or can do what they want, or whatever. It's totally your choice. I just want to start the conversation, and also because it's going to play such a large part in my sewing choices moving forward. I feel like it would be daft not to at least address it a little bit on this video. Also, the other thing is, I am not an expert on this. I've linked to a blog post and resources down below, so definitely check those out, which have a lot more detailed information. But yeah, feel free to let me know if there's anything missing there, or if you know of any better resources or any more resources that you can share. I would love to hear. And the other thing is, I want to be really gentle on myself in this process in general. I think that it's important that we all do that. Just recognising that there might be ways in which we can change our habits that might benefit others or benefit the environment or whatever, is a step, and it's useful. So yeah, important to be kind to ourselves as well as to each other about this. And finally, I'm not going to really touch on the environmental issues to do with my sewing and sewing practice. There are a few, but I think that's for another video. Already this video could end up being super long. So on the Fashion Revolution website, one of the things you can do is download some posters, and you can hold them up or you can put them next to clothes. So predominantly it's about sharing the hashtag Who Made My Clothes, and you can hold up a poster that says it, and sewers like me can hold up this poster as well, which is available to download for free on the website. It's I Made My Clothes. So I made my clothes, and the first thing to say that is, obviously sewing my own clothes is useful in a lot of ways. This is a free download from the Fashion Revolution website. So yeah, clearly sewers are somewhat removed from the fashion industry, the fast fashion industry. I personally do sew the majority of my clothes. Generally, I prefer wearing handmade clothes for a number of reasons, including the ones I'm about to talk about. So here are some ways that sewing and my sewing practice is useful, or the ways that I think remove me a little bit from the fast fashion industry. So first of all, clearly it removes a big part of the process, which is construction of the garments. When we think about fast fashion, we often think of the garment worker, and I am no longer buying my clothes from high street brands that have poor practice. I buy maybe the odd one. I have a couple of Topshop jumpers, but moving forward, this will get less and less. I'm very lucky that I can sew my own clothes, and so I can remove myself from that part of the production process. I am not putting more demand for cheaper prices and for more clothes. It also means that I have a lot more appreciation for the making process. The idea that people are doing what I love to do in such poor conditions, in forced labour and in danger of their lives is just heartbreaking and mind-blowing. I can't imagine it at all. And it does make me realise just how lucky I am that I can do this thing as a hobby and really enjoy the process. I also have a lot more appreciation for my clothes, and I'm consuming a lot less. I have gone through a bit of a transition recently, and you may have seen my wardrobe purge video. Yes, I do still get rid of clothes before they necessarily need to be thrown away or something, or recycled, but I have now decided to focus my sewing practice on items that will last, on sewing a bit slower so I have less but enjoy the process more and create things that are more beautifully finished, and just really enjoy that side of things. So I have more appreciation for my clothes. I'm consuming less. Again, I'm less likely to be buying into the fast fashion industries and the brands that are creating the high street clothing. And then lastly, even the fabric I buy tends to be samples and bolt ends from the fashion industry, but it does mean that it's a byproduct of the industry rather than something that is created specifically for me. So otherwise it would end up on a landfill. As I say, I'm not going to go into the environmental aspects too much, but obviously that has a knock-on effect towards the industry as well. Again, I'm not creating the demand. So there we go, I made my clothes, but who made my fabric? So this isn't available on the website, just a little disclaimer. I kind of doctored it a little bit. I hope that's okay. I think it is. Either way, what I want to ask is who made my fabric, because it is so hard to find out how fabric is made when you purchase fabric. It's so hard to go through the supply chain, and that was one of the issues with the clothing brands as well, that the supply chain had become so large that they weren't able to give that information, and they weren't able to control or monitor the working conditions and the behaviours of the various companies and factories and people involved. It's true as well with the fabric, because obviously the process starts a lot sooner than just in the garment factory. It starts from growing the crop for the fabric or creating the crop somehow, and it goes through a lot of different things before it even gets to a point where it's being constructed into a garment. So that includes like dyeing process and treatment of fabric in general, and there are so many issues with that in mind. So we know that that's the case. I know that the majority of my fabric comes from the fashion industry, whilst it is a byproduct, so I'm not necessarily creating the demand. To know that my beautiful fabrics, a fabric like this for example, is probably had some form of suffering and exploitation in its process of being created, is very worrying. And the fact that we cannot find that out at all, even in the high-end shops, it's so hard to find out where the fabric came from. Another YouTuber, sewing YouTuber, Lizzie B, recently put out a video on this topic as well, and in that she asked who made my fabric, and she is encouraging people to ask who made my fabric. So that's what I'm doing now, and that's what I encourage you to do if you want to. And in that Love to Sew podcast episode on sustainability, Caroline, who owns a fabric shop, Blackbird Fabrics, she says that she struggles to get information from her suppliers, but the more that people ask, the more she asks, the more that she asks, the more the suppliers ask the manufacturers, etc., etc., and it just goes down the line and it creates a demand for transparency. So I'm joining Lizzie B in asking who made my fabric and recognising that I can't completely remove myself from responsibility in the demand that I'm creating for fast fashion and for more and more fabric. So I've looked inward on my own practice, and one thing that I particularly have tried to change recently is my consumption of fabric. Because I've worked on my personal style, I feel like going forward I will hopefully be able to consume less fabric because I'm creating only things that I want to wear. But before then, I was absolutely creating a lot of clothes that I didn't want to wear or that weren't necessarily useful to my wardrobe and my lifestyle and didn't reflect my personal style. The result was I didn't wear them very much. They were maybe not very well made because I realised halfway through, and then again didn't want to wear them. And basically I was still falling into that fast fashion trap of just wanting more, not focusing on the longevity of an item, but just on what I wanted to wear right there and then. Last year I went on holiday. I made 9 dresses for 7 days. I mean, it doesn't make any sense anyway. But yes, a lot of those, like this dress, I did make for the summer in general, and it's just that I took them along as well because I love them so much. But I want to make more clothes like this dress. But yeah, I was buying a lot of fabric, a lot of cheap fabric that were samples and stuff, but still many of them not my style, not something I wanted to wear, and so I was donating a lot of stuff to charity. Unfortunately, as good as that is, charity shops do get a lot more clothes than they actually need, so many things do still end up on a landfill. So I'm trying to find new ways of recycling clothes now. If you have any ideas, do let me know. One of the things I'm doing is cutting them up and making them into something else, dyeing them, because a lot of my problems are with like garish prints or prints, floral prints particularly, that I don't really want to wear. But if I actually just dye the whole thing black, it would probably cover the print and be a lot more wearable for me. So yeah, my fabric consumption was really, really bad, and now I'm working to try and improve that. So now I want to make some pledges and suggest some action points for myself and maybe for you if you're interested. Things that I am going to do or have done, and yeah, ways I can actively try and remove myself even more from the fast fashion industry, if that makes sense. The main thing is I'm only going to make things that I actually need and that reflect my personal style. Okay, I'm probably still going to make a few mistakes along the way. It is really, really tough to get out of the mindset of needing that new thing for that new season or that new occasion. I think as women particularly, we fall into that trap because it's expected of us to not wear the same dress twice, for example. I mean, that's talked about so much in the media that it does trickle down, and it does sort of create that mindset in us, and obviously that works really well for the fashion industry. Isn't that a coincidence? So for example, this year I'm going on holiday at the end of summer, so I'll have all of summer to sort of decide what works well in warm weather, hopefully, if we get any more. We're in the middle of a random April heat wave in London, but knowing the UK, this might be all we ever get for the rest of summer. So as I said, I made quite a lot last year. Unfortunately, I think the majority of them aren't necessarily clothes that I want to take on holiday this year. Trying to reassess that. However, that's mainly because I don't want to take 9 dresses for 7 days. I just want to take like 3 dresses maybe, and a jumpsuit, a pair of shorts and a top. It's like a beach holiday. You don't need much more than that. And one thing that has really taught me that is the Spring 10x10 challenge, which I took part in, the details of which are down below, including my blog post where you can see all the outfits that I wore. It was a little bit difficult because it was very transitional, changing weather in the UK. I mean, just look at the month of April in the UK. We've had like snow and we've had 30-degree weather. It's crazy. So yeah, not all the items that I chose necessarily worked, but what it really did was teach me that I could make my wardrobe go further. I didn't necessarily need as much as I thought I did, and I could mix and match different things. I got out a very old shirt that I'd made ages ago. I'm not very happy with the construction of it, but I think I might take apart some of it and redo some of the top stitching, for example, because it is the perfect colour particularly, and because it was a shirt with buttons, I could wear it open, I could tie it up, or I could wear it just by itself, and you've got 3 different looks there that people won't necessarily recognise, and I certainly felt like I was wearing a very different outfit every day. So yeah, if you haven't done a 10 by 10 challenge, then definitely check it out and see what it's all about, and see if it's something for you. As I say, it was really useful to me to see how I could make my wardrobe go a little bit further, and how like the basics could be dressed up and changed, and yeah, would still feel very much me. Another thing I want to do is to use up more of my leftover fabrics. So Shawnee of Magnificent Thread recently launched the hashtag sewingleftovers, and it's just about using those leftovers. I have a video on a fabric poof where I keep all my sort of smaller scraps, but my fabric drawers are predominantly full of like leftovers, especially because I buy sample fabrics. You tend to buy the full length rather than a specific length. So that does mean that I tend to have leftovers that could be half a metre or even up to a metre. So Shawnee has launched this challenge, and lots of people are sharing ways in which they're using their leftovers, and it's really inspired me to do the same. I have a lot of great leftovers that I think I can make into things that will really match my personal style. However, there are things in there that aren't necessarily my style anymore. But as I say, I might try making them into one thing and then dyeing the whole thing, and then that might play with texture. There's all sorts of things, and I'm really excited about taking part in this challenge. And yeah, again, it just means that hopefully I will be buying a little bit less fabric, and still sort of feeding my sewing habit, if that makes sense. And then also Lizzie B's recent vlog, in it when she talks about the documentary The True Cost, and she finishes by suggesting the hashtag sewistswearitagain, which is another really great idea. So yeah, that's another thing that I'm definitely getting involved in, thinking about when coming up to things like occasions and weddings and holidays especially. I definitely fall into the trap of thinking I need an entirely new holiday wardrobe when I definitely don't. This dress will definitely be coming with me on my holiday this year, as will my named clothing kilo wrap dress. Oh, by the way, this is another named clothing pattern. It's a Rita shirt dress. I forgot to say that before. So there are plenty of ways that I can take pride in the fact that I sew my own clothes, and that to some extent I can remove myself from the fast fashion industry, but there are a number of ways when I can further decrease my involvement in creating that demand. So that's what I'm doing. Anyway, I hope this video made sense. I hope it was interesting, and I hope you got what I mean and recognise that I'm not trying to like judge anyone or put any pressure on anyone, including myself. I'm just trying to reflect and seeing if there's anything that I could do that would be good for me, good for the environment. And in thinking about this, I have realised that the majority of ways that I want to change to try and like decrease my involvement in the fast fashion industry are actually ways that will really benefit me as well. There's a lot of benefits to my own personal style, to my wardrobe, to my lifestyle as well, because if my wardrobe's more wearable, then yeah, it's going to be nicer to wear, and if I have to spend less on fabric in the future, then I'm going to have more money to spend on other things. So there's benefits all round, so from my perspective, why wouldn't I give it a go? So yeah, I'll be taking you along with me on this little journey, and I'll have a few more videos on this topic and more, and yeah, I expect it to grow a little bit, and if you have any thoughts, I really want to hear from you, so let me know in the comments below. And yeah, that's it from me today. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Facebook if you haven't already, and of course subscribe. And I will see you again next Sunday, but have a great week. Thanks for watching. Bye!